But if you don't get my attention, it doesn't matter how good your product or service is, because I'm just not there.
Linda Popky, thank you for joining me. How are you?
I'm great. How are you, Michael?
Wonderful. You're in Redwood City. The air is not the best right now because there's fires happening today, right?
No, it's smoky out there, but we're staying inside.
We're staying inside anyway, so it doesn't
Right.
really matter. But hopefully, by the time this airs, the fires will, of course, have gone out, and hopefully, COVID will be a little bit better as well. And I have to start with your fun fact because you played the same piano that Billy Joel played.
I actually played the concert grand piano that Billy Joel bought, and it's funny. I'm a classical pianist. I do that for fun and to kind of keep me sane. And I was in New York a number of years ago and was at the Steinway store in not far from Carnegie Hall. And we were knowing one of the reps. We were playing a number of the pianos, and then she says, "Try this one down here," and had a tag on it that said Joel. Oh, who's Joel? She said, "Do you like that?" I said, "Yeah, Joel's got a nice piano." She said, "Do you know who that is?" I said, "No." She said, "That's Billy Joel." So he had tagged that piano, he bought it, and we played it before he even got it in his house. So
Okay,
that was
so I really hope that you didn't wash your hands since that moment, because I know that I wouldn't for the rest of my life. He's one of my favorite artists of all time. So when I saw that fun fact, I was blown away. But that's wonderful, Linda. I want to transition to marketing and consulting. Two really interesting things that I know very, very little about. So I'm especially curious for this episode, and I'd love to start by talking a little bit about the role of messaging and marketing and your ability to help other entrepreneurs, managers, executives convey their message in a way that helps them, at the end win, and whether it's sales or bringing the right people on board or just getting the right messaging across. And then we'll transition to the organization that you're helping run, the SAC for consulting. So let's start off, Linda. Talk to me a little bit about yourself, your journey, and why marketing. What is it about marketing that really makes you excited?
So it's funny because I guess I don't think I ever consciously said I want to be a marketer, but I'm creative and I like to, I've always been a writer, and it just seemed to be a great way to kind of get things across. And I started out actually wanting to be a journalist, and I went to Boston University to the School of Public Communications, and they had us write things like obituaries and follow town council meetings and all that stuff. And I said, this is boring. This is not going to be the fun stuff you see on TV and in the movies. So I said, what can I do that would be a little more interesting? And I sort of wound up in advertising and PR, and then from there into really marketing. And I think with me, what's fun is you have people like yourself. You have people who are entrepreneurs. They have a wonderful product. They have a great idea. They really are passionate about it. But no matter how good that is, if you can't translate that into something that your audience cares about, it doesn't matter. So we sort of have this idea. I've got this great product and this great idea, we're going to be successful. That's not always true. Too many really good ideas just fall by the wayside, right? Because we haven't been able to get the right message to the right person. And it's not just saying in general what's good about you, but why do I care? If I'm your audience, why is that important to me? It's not important because you're good or because you're smart or because you have the right credentials. It's because you're going to do something for me. And that's what, as marketers, we have to do. We have to find the within. What's in it for me, for your prospects and your audience.
What was that acronym?
WIFM. What's in it for me? WIIFM.
I love it. Okay, I have to dig a little bit deeper into this concept because, at the end of the day, you're right. We're working, I could be working 16, 17 hours a day very diligently on something that I think is really special. But then in the 1 minute that I have my audience's attention, whether it's an investor, a person that I'm selling to, or another employee that I want to onboard to the company, then it doesn't work. So what are some of the pitfalls that you see people make that I should be avoiding on my entrepreneurial journey?
So I think one of the things that happens is people get so passionate about it that they want, because something makes sense to you, it should make sense to me as well. And so you have to be careful. And also, most cases, we are not the target audience for our products. Sometimes we are, but sometimes the lens that we look through, the way we look, is not the way that other people are going to see us. And sometimes you have something you're convinced is going to be used one way, and it gets out there and people say, that's great, let's use it differently. So you have to be in communication with the people that you want to, or you think are really going to be benefiting from what you're doing. And you have to have it be a two-way conversation, not a dialogue. So it's not like, here's this, here's this, here's this. What do you think? It's got to be, tell me what you want, etc. Now, that being said, people don't always know what they want. No one said to Steve Jobs, you need to do iTunes, you need to do an iPhone and iPad. He said, wouldn't it be great if? So no one said to the folks from Uber or Airbnb, we should do this. So, but what they did is they looked at the marketplace and said, gee, hotels that's too expensive and they're yucky. What if we did this? Nobody wants to drive in a taxi cab. What if we do that? So they looked at what was going on and they said, how do we make the situation better? So it wasn't, gee, I have a great technology, let me go out and get it out to the world, but how do I change people's lives in a way that they're going to really appreciate it?
Right. So then what is your relationship with entrepreneurs and executives as they're framing their messaging and as they're thinking about their within?
So what I do, and I work with all kinds of companies. I work with large Silicon Valley, Fortune 500 companies. I work with, professional services people like real estate agents and lawyers. But I love working with entrepreneurs because they're always so passionate, right? I mean,
right.
They love what they're doing,
right.
or you couldn't be an entrepreneur. And what I do is try to help them through that initial passion where it's like, gee, this is great, to say, how do we get that message out to people? What does that really mean? And sometimes it can be a little painful for them because, it's like your child, right? So telling your child is not dressed the way they should be. And you're saying, no, I dress them, they're great. So yeah, it's actually a great baby that you have, but we might have to put them in a little bit different outfit to have them be, the rest of the world see how cute your kid is. So it's that kind of a thing. But it's great to be able to work with them. Sometimes what I do is I work with technology companies where they're very, very smart people. And they have the right idea, they have the right, the concept. They know that they're going to help their customer, but they're so focused on the bells and whistles, the speeds and feeds, and we have to turn that into benefits. So I will take that language and kind of frame that in a way that their audience is, oh, now I get it. Now I understand what's in it for me and why I should pay attention to you. Because if you can't get my attention, and you've only got a very short period of time, we have such short attention spans right now. Everybody, you think about it, your average commercial that you might see on TV or on the internet is 10, 15 seconds. There was a time when it was 30, 60 seconds, etc. But if you can't capture my attention in a few seconds, I'm gone. And so you've got to cut to the chase very quickly. And so how can we do that? And so that's what I do is I help people kind of take their messaging and frame it and mold it in a way that people like you and others can say, oh, tell me more. And then once I've got to the tell me more, now you can go out as an entrepreneur and say, hey, try this, or here's what you need to know, etc. But if you don't get my attention, it doesn't matter how good your product or service is because I'm just not there.
Right. Is there a way to validate this properly without going all out on marketing spends and sending this to the public? So if I want to now go and test this messaging, and I sit down and I say, okay, Michael, I have a 20 word limit to send to Linda so that she would be willing to buy my product and be on my show 20-minute leaders. How do I get her attention? How do I go about that process?
So here's the thing. There's a big difference between telling one person and telling a million people. So what you do is you find a good target audience, whether it's people you know or people you are referred to, etc. And you say, hey, I think you might be the right people for this. Let me run this by you. What is it? Does it resonate? Does it make sense? And sometimes they'll say yes, and sometimes they'll say no, and sometimes they'll say, well, sort of, but here's what it is that I think makes sense. And then the other thing, before you even do that, ask them. Hey, I've got this idea. What do you think? Would that make sense to you? Who would buy this? Would you spend money on it? Would that, would you pay? Well, yeah, or maybe you should talk to so-and-so or not, don't forget it. One of the most important projects I did a number of years ago, because I also do market research, was with an entrepreneur who had a product in the consumer electronics space. And he was convinced that this was going to be the next, the next big thing, right? And so he hired us to do some research, and we went out and conducted focus groups, and we looked at this thing inside, outside, backwards, forwards, and people basically said, I would never buy this thing. Why? And so we had to sit him down and say, there really is not a market for your product. And he was kind of unhappy because we didn't just tell him his baby was ugly. We told him he shouldn't have the baby at all, right? So,
Wow.
so he was sort of not real happy when he went, but I felt that we had saved him millions of dollars, because had he not done that, he would have invested in this thing and gone out and produced it. He had a factory in Asia that was going to make this stuff. He would have wound up with a warehouse full of these things and been out a lot of money and a lot of time and effort. So sometimes, you learn things you may not like, but it's really helpful to know.
So through the lenses of marketing and through sort of coming in as a third party independent, and you're actually helping sometimes uncover a lot of the real, the dirt of what's happening, right? It's not just that maybe the messaging is not right, but maybe the product is not right. Do you find that most people approach you when they have a problem, or when they're, because it sounds to me like you're the type of person I would go to when I realize that I'm not able to do this myself. I'm trying and I'm not succeeding, right?
There's a couple things. So sometimes people come in because they say, hey, we got to a certain point and we're stuck. And very often, you get some people that like what you have. You get to here and you want to get to here, and you need to figure out how do you break through. So that could be it. But sometimes people come because they say, we've got this great thing, we've got this great product, and I've got this idea, and we need your help to kind of get it out there. And how do we make this thing be fantastic? We haven't failed at it. We're just not sure how to get from point A to point B. And that's what I would say is a maturity in an entrepreneur, because there are some entrepreneurs that say, I know everything. This is great. I'm convinced. I have the backing. I have this. I have that. I know what the right message is. And sometimes they're right. And more often than not, they kind of get a little bit, pushed back because they think they know and they haven't asked. It's all a one-way street. They haven't had that dialogue.
Right. Okay, so talk to me a little bit about consulting overall. So before we dive into the organization that you're helping run, the SAC, I'd love to understand a little bit better the role of a consultant and why that is something that is specifically interesting to you.
So I spent a lot of time in Silicon Valley. I worked for Sun Microsystems for a number of years, and I left Sun in the early 2000s, and people would send me jobs listings. Hey, you should do this, you should do that. And I'd look at it and I'd say, I don't want to work for them. I don't want to do that. So I sort of fell into consulting because a friend of mine said, well, why don't you go check this job out here? And I said, I don't think that's right for you, but I did. And they said, well, no, we don't want to hire you, but we'd love to bring you in on a consulting project. Would you be interested? And I said, sure, why not? And so what I found that's interesting about consulting is, one of the things I hate about being in a company is you sit in meetings and you have to go through all the corporate stuff and the political things. As a consultant, they say, we want you here to do something. Can you help us with this? You come in, you do it, you provide expertise, and then you leave. You're not there for all the other, ongoing things. You're not trying to climb the corporate ladder. You're not trying to be politically astute and all that. And so it's fun. And then the other thing is I get to work with a lot of different people.
Right.
So I get bored if I'm doing the same thing all the time. So I can be working with 5, 6, 7, 8 clients at the same time. Not at the exact same moment, but, after I finish with you, I'm going to talk to this one and then I'm going to talk to that one. And so it mixes things up and it keeps you sharp. But a good consultant comes in and brings their expertise and helps you kind of understand how to get to the next level without making you dependent on them as if, it's kind of like a crutch. So it's not that we're there to say, hey, you need to keep hiring me, but I'm here to help you solve a problem or exploit an opportunity or whatever. And once I get you set, then you go on and we go on to something else. And so that's what I think. And that's the difference between a consultant and a contractor. We have in Silicon Valley, we have a lot of contractors, which is great. They come in, they get paid by the hour, they do what needs to be done. They might be there for years. That's perfectly fine. Consultants, we don't really charge by the hour. We charge by the value we provide, by the project. And we come in, we provide this level of expertise, and then we leave. And we go on and help someone.
As a consultant yourself, do you bring in the expertise that you have specifically in marketing and messaging, and through the book that you've written, the Leverage2Market? Is that the main consulting that you do?
I do, yeah. So a lot of what I do is around marketing and everything from strategy and branding and positioning. I did a lot of work with channels and partners in my time on the corporate side. So I work with people doing that, marketing intelligence, which is like research. But then I also work with entrepreneurs and small business people to say, let me coach you if you're having trouble kind of figuring out where you are and what you need to do. So sometimes I work with people just to help them kind of get their own ideas together and help them move forward with that. And then the other thing I do is, because I'm creating a lot of content today, is not only do I create content for clients, but I also edit other people's content. So whether that would be white papers or promotional materials, but I'm doing a lot of either book proposals or book manuscripts. And in the midst of this pandemic, for whatever reason, everybody's gotten around to writing that project they had put off for years. So I'm getting lots and lots of projects coming in about people saying, I finally finished the book. I need someone to look at it. And again, I can help translate to the audience, but I'm also good at saying, that comma didn't appear where it should be. And, you used a kind of a dangling participle there. So let's fix the grammar. So all of those things, I talk about marketing above the noise. All those things that, kind of are there that aren't exactly right, they're all noise. And so when you want to get out and talk to someone, you want to get rid of all the noise. It's like static, right? Remember an old-fashioned radio, which may be before your time, but there was static, right, on AM? You want to get rid of all the static so that I can hear you and we can communicate directly. And so that's what I do, is I help get rid of all that static and all that noise so you can reach your customers more effectively.
Right. No, and I think it's very funny that you mentioned that everybody got around to writing books. I'm actually publishing a book myself next week that I got writing throughout these COVID times. But I want to make sure we also have enough time to talk a little bit about this group SAC. So Society Association. Remind me again the exact name.
Society for the Advancement of Consulting.
Yes.
So Alan Weiss, who's kind of the guru of independent consulting, is my mentor, and he had created this association 17 years ago, and he wanted to give independent consultants a way to get together and kind of work with each other. And it went on and on and on, but he didn't put a lot of time in it because he had a lot of other things going on. So 2.5 years ago, he came to me, and a woman has become my business partner in Southern California, and he said, I don't really have the time to put in this. Would you take it over? And we said, okay, why not? So we took it over. We blew away everything that was old-fashioned and labor-intensive and took time on your part, made it all online, membership, etc. Before there was a pandemic, we were early Zoom users. So we knew before people could spell Zoom. And we said, we're going to do webinars. And we what kind of value can we add to our members? So our motto is growth by association. So how do you grow by being associated if you're an individual person like an entrepreneur? How do you grow by having the right people around you? So we do webinars, we do online workshops, we do all kinds of, we have special interest groups like around people who are interested in supply chain and nonprofits and technology. And we've grown the organization so that we have, now we have members in 14 countries. And we have, so it's been a lot of fun, and people say to us, "Wow, this has really been more than we ever thought." And they're across all kinds of different consulting, OD and technology and marketing and finance and IT and you name it. So it's all kinds of interesting things. And this year, actually this fall, we normally have our annual meeting every year in New York City. And we had space on a hotel in New York City, and we moved it out to 2021. So we're doing it virtually. And, here's the thing that's really interesting is you've got to, as an entrepreneur, you've got to say, here's where we are and here's how I'm going to make something happen. We said, okay, we can't be in New York. We're sorry about that. We're sad. Okay, now we're done. We have people all over the world. We're going to have an expanded day where we're going to start very early in the morning for us here in California, in Europe. And we're going to have sessions there, sessions middle of the day for North America, late in the day for Pacific Rim. So no matter where you are, there will be things happening in your time zone. We're going to be able to get experts that wouldn't come to New York. And then we're going to record everything on Zoom and archive it. So you don't have to sit, Michael, from 6 in the morning till 10 at night. You pick what you want and you just watch it whenever. So this is happening in October. We've already doubled the number of people who would have come to New York, and we still have 2 months out. So that's what I mean about you see, okay, the whole thing about lemons and making lemonade. We can't be there in person. How do we make this even better? And I think that's what really makes a successful entrepreneur. Is you say, hey, this is not what I thought I was getting into, but given where I am, how do I take it and do the best I can with it?
Wow, I think that's just remarkable. Linda, I want to take this time to thank you for your generosity and for all the insights for this. But before we leave, I have to ask you my favorite question, which is 3 words that you would use to describe yourself.
3 words. I think number 1 is creative. I'm a writer, I'm a musician, etc. So I love creating things. Number 2 is resourceful. I take what's given me and we turn it around, do what we can. And number 3 is determined. I'm not going to, you can't knock me down. I'll get back up and figure out where we go from here. So creative, resourceful, determined. That's me.
I love it. I simply love it. Thank you very, very much. This was
Thank you,
wonderful.
Michael. This was fun. All right.
Take care.